Hello, my name is Amy Hanrahan, and I'm here today with our keynote for opening day 2. This is Kathy Parry. Thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely.
And today, Kathy opened up our conference with a great presentation entitled My Rubber Band Resilience, How HR Professionals Can Stretch Without Snapping During Disruptive Events. So Kathy, would you give us your elevator speech on, what this is for those that weren't able to join us today?
Sure. Well, what I realized is there's kind of a formula to becoming resilient. I had a crisis happen in my life with my 4th child who was diagnosed with a very severe disease. At first they thought she would only live 2 years. She's 17 now. But through that process and looking back in retrospect, I realized resilience actually can be learned and taught, and there's some things that we can do when we're faced with disruptions, and
Absolutely.
whether that's personal or professional.
Yes, it was a great help, especially for me as an HR professional, so I really appreciate that. So I have a couple questions here I'd like to kind of run through. So how did your past corporate life experience help you to realize and desire to aid in changing the complex energy issues that today's HR professionals are up against?
Well, I started in HR as a trainer. So I worked with a large financial institution and I was in branch operations. So I got to go out to the branches, but when I went to the branches, they didn't always want to see me.
That's the case.
I know. I represented change. I represented we're starting a new system. I remember at one point I had to go to Georgia. I was in North Carolina. I had to go to a brand new bank that was being merged. So not only was I bringing a new system, I was bringing a whole new corporate dynamic.
Yes.
So I saw that there's ways to ease that.
Sure.
And that's one of the reasons I do what I do. I help others try to find out how they can ease that. And one of the things I talked about today is just understanding reactions.
Yes.
People are going to have a reaction, and that's okay. And
letting them own that.
And letting them own that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of my background and why I got into it. I
That's
kind of
fantastic.
understand.
Well, thank you. So what is a corporate energy expert?
Well, it's kind of come out of a couple places.
Okay.
So my daughter's disease is actually the disease of no energy. That's what they call it. And then when I started working with companies, I realized, hey, there can be companies with no energy. And where is that energy being sapped from? So actually, I talk a lot about those types of things. How can you be that organization that doesn't get mired down in your disruptive events, and how can you stay energized through them?
That's great. So you've authored 3 very interesting and thought-provoking books. So what is the premise behind one of them in particular? It's titled Hungover, Sleep Deprived, Over-Caffeinated, and Living on Pizza.
Well, that one was actually a fun one.
Aren't we all?
Well, and what's funny about that is I wrote that for the college market. And I wrote that when my children were entering college and were telling me what was going on.
Sure.
And my daughter actually came up with that title.
That's fantastic.
She said, everyone's hungover, sleep deprived, over-caffeinated, living on pizza. And I'll never, I said, write that down. I go, write it down right now. That'd be a great. So I did used to do a lot of speaking in the college market.
Oh, okay.
Just helping that demographic feel energized. And then I actually did do a number of programs for onboarding of that demographic, because sometimes they don't get how to enter that professional life after they've just come out of a very different dynamic.
Absolutely.
So that book supports that.
I love it. Thank you. So you have also become a recognized expert in the area of cellular function and have received certification in plant-based nutrition. You had mentioned earlier because of your daughter. So I understand that as that it was from, let's rephrase that question, time out. Cut. No, don't actually cut, but we'll go ahead and do this again. Okay. You have also become a recognized expert in the area of cellular function, and you've received a certification in plant-based nutrition. Now, I understand, and you've told us today, that it was one of your children that was the cause for this, that made you interested in the area. So can you elaborate a little further for our audience?
Sure. And looking at it from a resilience standpoint, when I was going through this with my daughter, often what we want to do to build that resilience muscle is we need to take control of something.
Mm-hmm.
Some of us feel like, oh, this disruption, this crisis, this transitional event is getting the best of me.
Sure.
What can I control?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that was the one thing I could control for her. The doctors gave me nowhere to go with diet. They just said her cells don't turn food into energy properly.
Sure.
So I was like, well, I'm going to control that. That's going to be
interesting.
That's going to be my piece to own. So I went out and I got the education I needed, the certifications.
That's great.
I understand how a cell creates energy.
Wow.
So that's on my personal level and how that made me feel resilient. But again, that goes to anything that we might be facing.
Mm-hmm.
What can you control? What piece do you need? Do you need to get more education for it?
Sure. Then
So,
do it.
then do it, right.
Absolutely. That's great. Okay, so as a mother of 8, from what I understand,
Four of my own.
4 of your own, yes, but a mother of 8, what is the perfect family outing for you?
Oh my gosh. Something outdoors.
Without too much chaos.
Something outdoors. I'm big hikers. One of our children lives in Denver.
Okay.
So
That's a fun place to go.
we've done things, hikes. Yeah, they would have to be an outdoor activity.
That's great. Okay, so with your plant-based nutrition, I'm going to ask anyway, what is a special treat for you? You'd mentioned chocolate, so is it dark chocolate, milk chocolate, white chocolate? Do you have a favorite?
Oh yeah. If you could grab my purse that's sitting right over there, it has a bar of
Emergency.
85% dark chocolate.
Ooh,
I am
the strong stuff.
Yeah, the strong stuff. It is not very sweet. I don't eat a lot of sugar.
Sure.
But that 85% dark chocolate has it just has a taste I love, and it's full of good nutrients too. So
That's fantastic.
I don't feel so guilty.
See? Don't feel too guilty. Well, thank you, Kathy, so much for joining us. It was a wonderful presentation today, a great way to start day 2. So please join us. If you didn't get to attend this year, please join us next year for our 71st annual PHRA conference. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.